Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. This one?
Peter Esele is one of the most recognizable names in the Nigerian oil and gas industry, having served as president of Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria and for 2 tenures as president of Trade Union Congress. He has also served as board member of several federal government agencies and parastatals. And in 2016, he aspired to become governor of Edo State on the platform of the All Progressives Congress. However, that dream came unstuck with the eventual election of Godwin Obaseki. Remarkably, a few months ago, in the thick of the crisis that engulfed APC's governorship primaries, he stood and fought shoulder to shoulder with Governor Obaseki as the battle for the party's governorship ticket raged on. But when Governor Obaseki decided to bail out of the party in July 2020 in favor of the People's Democratic Party, Peter Esele publicly declared that for him and his household, it would be APC or no other political party. A proven loyal party man, no doubt. And right now, as we continue our build-up to this weekend's election, we're now being joined by the man himself. Peter Esele, former PENGASSAN President, Labour Union leader. What's the journey so far towards this weekend's election? And would you be willing to take a punt at Edo State's political barometer, especially as it relates to the socio-economic angle to this intriguing contest? Welcome to the program, Mr. Peter Esele. What is your reading of the atmosphere at the moment?
Well, it's peaceful. Of course, you expect in situations like this for both candidates to jostle for people's vote. And what you have is that the APC is campaigning, the PDP is also equally campaigning. And I think from what is on ground that we are likely going to have a very peaceful poll on Saturday.
Well, you're that optimistic. What's the basis of that optimism? Because the various guests that we have had on this program on the Edo election, the main concern has been about the threat of violence. Yes, the police have deployed 31,000 officers on the ground. So what's your optimism based on? The majority of the political actors or the electorate themselves, or the fact that the Nigeria police says it is prepared to check impunity?
I think all these parameters are clear. The police are on ground. The majority of the contestant is also coming to the fore. And you also know how powerful the palace of the Oba is in the socio-political, economic sphere of Edo State. And when you have the Oba of Benin calling everybody to the table and also advising everyone, I think if you listen to the various body language and the comments coming from the aspirants, since the Oba's pronouncement, tempers have cooled down.
Right, Peter. A lot of people say this campaign is not issue-based, but it's too personality-based. I mean, what say you about this? Who should matter more here? The Edo people that want to hear the talk about the issues that are affecting them, or the political gladiators or Godzillas, as they are called, in this respect?
It has to do with our society. You can't divulge personality from what is going on. You and I know in other climes, what happens is that for a party like APC, for example, you will be having somebody who feels is more progressive to carry out the progressive agenda. And in the PDP, you are supposed to also have that. But in our own climb, we don't play that politics whereby you have party manifestos. So what you have mostly personality coming to the fore. And that is why you have Esele talking about a simple agenda, while Obaseki is talking about his continuity in the office. But then, behind all these noises, you will still know who is telling you the truth. And you also be able to discern where your vote should go.
Well, you've been a part of this process. You're also from the state. What do you think will make the difference in this election? I say this because this is practically a rematch of 2016, just cross-carpeting by the major contenders in this election. What will make the difference?
I think what is going to make the difference is also to do with sphere of influence. Whether you like it or not, Nigerians or the way we vote has to do with who we see that is in front of us and who we see that is also with the other person. If you take, for example, you look at those who are behind Obaseki, majority of them is because they are government appointee. But if you look at those who are behind the pastor, majority of them are people who believe that who believe in the party and believe in the ideals that the APC represent. So that is also one of the things that will play out. Another aspect of it is you also have to look at the agenda of the governor. Has he been able to keep to the promises he made in 2016? And if you look at it, let's take, for example, the agri policy of the Edo State government. I watched the special advisor the last time talking about it. I would say a lot of people are not at home with that policy. And I'll give an example of where you have a couple of people who were given about 1.3 million naira paid into their account for farming. And these guys don't have a single farm. They don't have a farm. And the farm was created for them somewhere in Sobe, and Sugbenu, and Warake. And now these guys, at the end of the day, don't have access to the farm. They don't have access to the money. So when you say you want people to become farmers and they don't have access to this money, at the end of the day, you call them and say, okay, fine, the money has been used. This is the farm in Sobe, for example, and this is the proceed, and they never see any proceed. So a lot of the young farmers are not happy about that, and that is also going to play a role in all of this.
Mr. Esele, what I would prefer would be, a very detailed assessment of the two leading candidates. Before Governor Obaseki crossed over to the People's Democratic Party, you were on his side, together in the APC, and you supported him. You wanted him to be the gubernatorial candidate. But you chose to remain behind in the APC, which is fine enough. Everybody can make his own choice. So you know these personalities very well. The APC candidate, the PDP candidate. But without partisanship, just plain, honest assessment of their strengths and weaknesses, what will you say is your view? First about the PDP candidate, and then also the APC candidate, and where do you think the pendulum will swing on Saturday? Beyond you just saying my party must win.
Thank you very much, Ruben. Now, first thing you have to look at, I happen to have known these two candidates very well. One of the weaknesses of Obaseki has to be that he's not a very good team player. And you know, whether you like it or not, to be able to lead a society, to move everybody forward, it has to be a movement. A movement in the sense that this is what you intend to achieve, and then you have to have everybody on board to make sure that that is done, and then drive in a particular direction. That is one of the areas that Obaseki has also been found wanting. In the other aspect of another weakness that Obaseki also found from Obaseki is his lack of ability to communicate his own ideas. And if you have this feeling that you know it all, and then that becomes a problem on itself. So that, for me, it's one shortcoming of Obaseki. I'm not going to say his 4 years is completely zero. Just like you have said, try to be non-partisan. I'm not going to say his 4 years is completely zero. But one thing is sure is that the output is less than the input. Then for Osage Ezeyamo, Osage has Pastor Osage Ezeyamo. One of the strengths is also that he's a better team player, and he's also able to communicate what he wants to do. And the idea of putting what he intends to achieve in the next 4 years, if elected as governor of Edo State, in black and white, also make it easier for him to be accountable. Now, if you look at all of this, you have to look at why do I think APC may carry the day. It's going to be a tight election, but why I think APC will carry the day is it's the campaign that you have on ground, the ability for the APC candidate to communicate what he intends to achieve, and the ability for him also. He's a grassroots politician. Ordinarily, if you have a candidate coming against an incumbent governor, you are not going to be talking about a very close range. But what you have right now, that the pastor has a slight edge.
Well, what are Obaseki's strengths? Since you also say you know him very well. You have only talked about his weaknesses. And in fact, I noticed you started with Obaseki's weaknesses, but you started with Ezeyamu's strengths. Now, so that means that you are playing politics.
Okay, you asked me a question. Yes. You said, I know them very well. Now, what are Obaseki's strengths? Obaseki has this, one of his strengths is the ability for him, he wants to get this done, he wants to get this done. Now, and wanting to get things done is focused, is one-dimensional. But you also know when you become a governor, you should be multi-dimensional. And then that, for me, is major strength. Now, the other aspect of it is that he said, okay, he's also not when I would say somebody that I would say he understands politics in detail, but he's a politician. So that also becomes one of his strengths. Another aspect you can also look at Obaseki is that you also have to review the fact that he's a detailed person. That is also one of his advantages. He's quite detailed.
All right, Peter, I want to understand something from you. It's a tough balancing act you're doing. You said, oh, Obaseki, you know, you support Obaseki, you were not happy about the injustice done to Obaseki, but you were not going to leave the APC. So obviously, what you are saying to me here, and from this answering of questions, is that you are for Esele Yamu.
Of course I am for Esele Yamu, and I am in the APC.
So what happened? I thought you were fighting against the injustice done to Obaseki that time. What changed?
Now, first thing is, when Obaseki was in the APC, we were both in the APC. So once you decide to leave the APC, I believe in the ideals and whatever the APC stands for, that is what I believe in. So once you said you are no longer comfortable with being in APC and you move to PDP, you move to PDP, one of the things I need to ask myself is that my support for Obaseki does not have to do with the personality. I don't go with personality because once you go with personality, there's every tendency for you to be let down. So I go with the principle, and that is why I looked at it. Obaseki no longer reflects that principle which was happening when he was in APC. For example, I supported him when he said nobody's sharing the money. But right now, he's doing the very same thing that he said he was fighting against since he moved to the PDP. So whatever amount of money you said you were not going to spend is what you're spending. He didn't get the ticket from PDP as a cakewalk. It wasn't a cakewalk. It was heavy. There was a huge investment to give him that ticket. For me, that is what changed.
Also, that's what changed, but not the injustice. Because you wrote a very strongly worded article where you took a stand, and a lot of people, respected that position. And you said, we will stand against injustice. You felt this was meted out to him. So would you have favored a case where Obaseki didn't get the ticket and he will not have reached to become governor again? Will just have left it and remained in the APC? Would you have still been on his side? Would you have still been on your mark? But because his ambition, like every politician, is key to him and he moved to another party to get it, is that why you are against him now?
No, my question will be will you say because of your personal interest to destroy the institution? Now, same questions you will ask somebody like President Jonathan. Jonathan has options when he lost the election. But after losing the election, Jonathan went ahead to congratulate Buhari. And that singular act is what we are all celebrating Jonathan for today. So one thing is very clear. The injustice you are talking about in APC is also the same thing that will play out in PDP. And if you go back memory lane, also ask yourself, how did Obaseki also become a governor? The then governor virtually decimated the field to make sure Obaseki emerged. As at that time, Obaseki didn't see anything unjust about it. So now that he's now seeing what is also playing out as being injustice. I don't support injustice, but I also believe that being within the system is the only way you can correct the injustice.
All right, so you felt he should have stayed in the system?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. I see you interestingly avoided to answer Dr. Bats's question on where will the pendulum swing, but I can imagine as a party man, I don't need to look into a crystal ball for you to say you want your party to win. But some will say perhaps history is about to repeat itself when you look at the way the elections played out in 2016. And I want us to break it down to, local politics, the 3 senatorial districts, the factor of zoning, whether we like it or not, and look at how the candidates involved, the individuals involved, and what they bring to the table in these elections. The South, the Central, and the North senatorial districts. We do know that the former governor, comrade governor, Adams Oshiomhole, is from the North. Philip Schreiber, the deputy governor, incumbent deputy governor, is also from the North. The running mate to Pastor Esele Yamu of your party is from the North. The 2 leading gladiators, the incumbent governor and Pastor Esele Yamu, are from the South. And, the PDP also having senatorial seats, in some of those senatorial districts. What do you see playing out, really, in breaking it down in those terms of where the numbers were coming from?
Now, if you look at the Central, you have about 360,000 votes. While in the North, you have about 560,000 votes. In the South, you have about 1.2 million votes. Now, whether you like it or not, the way politics is played in Nigeria is that in the North, you are going to have an Oshiomhole. Oshiomhole is a heavyweight in the North, and is a heavyweight in the Edo State as a whole. But what you are going to have in the North is the North will feel aggrieved. Oshiomhole is one of their own, is their son. They are not happy that Oshiomhole lost out in the national chairmanship of the APC, and they believe Obaseki was instrumental to Oshiomhole's loss of that chairmanship seat. So you are going to have a heavy vote going for Esele in the North. In the South, in the cosmopolitan area, yes, it will be tighter, but in the interior, I don't think it will be tight, it will be that close. So I know you are going to say, probably because I'm an OPC member, I'm going to go for Pastor Esele, but that is one of the things that is played out. Where the APC is likely going to face challenges will be in the Central. I happen to be from the Central because what the PDP have sold to those in the Central is that after Obaseki, they will present the next governor. And what is happening is I've asked those in the Central that I've not seen any video where Obaseki had said that. But the campaign on the ground is that you've had the North have done 8 years, the South, Obaseki is going to do 8 years, then naturally they think he's going to come to the Central. So that is playing out in the Central. But APC is trying to counter that argument in the Central. So where I think it will be tighter for both sides, and Obaseki may have a slight edge in the Central, yes. But in the South and in the North, that is where the battle will be. It's possible that in the North, Esele is going to carry the day, and then in the South, Esele will also still have an edge. Why am I saying that? Is that even if you put the Central and the North together, there are about 900,000 votes, and the total vote coming from the South is even higher than having votes combined. So what you are going to have is who is able to go to the grassroots and communicate, and who are those leaders that you have on ground. Ruben, you have played politics too. You were also a deputy gubernatorial aspirant in one of the parties. And you know that
candidates, please.
Candidates. I'm sorry, candidates. My apologies. One of the candidates in election in the state, you know the structure of how politics is played in Nigeria has to be leadership based, whereby somebody is standing here and the guy happens to be the representative of the party. Who is the representative of the party at the grassroots? That is key. So the representative of each party at the grassroots will be the one who will dictate where the pendulum will swing.
Well, it's just that in Edo North, where Philip Shaibu also comes from, we're not too sure that it will be such an easy ride for Esele and his godfather, Adams Oshiomhole, because Philip Shaibu is also saying that he will teach the godfather some lessons in politics in Edo North. Anyway, that's by the way. In all of these calculations and analysis, nobody from Edo State has ever made any effort to mention the remaining 12 political parties that are supposed to be in this race. Why is that so? Is it that the candidates of those other political parties do not really exist? Is it truly, in a real sense, just a two-horse race? Because you have not talked about any other political party. And yet we understand that there are 14 political parties in this gubernatorial race. Where are those parties?
Ruben, is a two-horse race. Those majority of those parties, I want to be very polite and respectful. Majority of them exist on the papers. And then some of these parties, you and I also know, some of the gladiators in this election may even be the one funding those parties. So I think that is why the attention is on APC and PDP.
All right, Peter, I just want to put this straight to you now. And I want to talk about the factor of incumbency. You know, that's a very potent factor in Nigerian electioneering process. But you've not talked about that. You know, when you were even mentioning the strength, I expected you to say, okay, the incumbency factor is there. But you just kept mum about it.
The incumbency factor is even why the governor is still breathing, and that is why he's still he's still able to go around, because the incumbency factor invariably means that the governor, whoever is in power, has more money to spend, more money from the coffers of the state to spend, because actually we don't have finance control, so you don't even know who is funding who. So basically, whoever is in authority has the source of funds directly from the state coffers to contest an election. I think the incumbency factor is something we can also talk about, but the fact is that that is also one of the major strengths that is keeping Obaseki going.
Are you saying Obaseki is spending state funds to prosecute his own elections?
Yes. You see, there is a direct way where you spend the state fund. There's also the indirect way. I'll give you an example. In the last 4 weeks, you've had new senior special assistant and new special assistant of over 2,500 that have just been employed. So if you add that at about 150,000 naira times 250 times 2,500, that is huge money. That is also an indirect way of wanting to influence the election.
Well, your party has had to engage in a lot of damage control during these electioneering campaign seasons as a result of what we saw in 2016 coming from Adams Oshiomhole and, against the now candidate of your party, Pastor Esele. Do you think that you have been able to sell to the Edo people that, your party can, or your candidates particularly, can be trusted, given the rhetorics we had in 2016? Do you think that your damage control would work?
Yes, I think it has. It has, because it's not every day you see a politician going from one local government to another, kneeling down and begging that he has made a mistake. Oshiomhole virtually went through the entire local government kneeling down and begging. It is very difficult for politicians to own up to their errors and own up to their mistake. And I think Oshiomhole has done that in the last couple of weeks, going about begging. But again, we must remember that Oshiomhole himself is not on the ballot. The person who is on the ballot is Pastor Esele. So my own attention and the attention of most Edo people is actually on who is on the ballot.
Well, Peter Esele, as your party, the APC, consider the possibility that your candidate, Esele, could lose this election? Because I see a lot of ego, on the APC side. The APC seems to have just concluded that winning the election is a done deal. What if Esele loses? What happens? You go to court or reject the result or congratulate Governor Obaseki?
One thing is very clear. I don't think the APC will lose the election. And with what we have on ground, I don't think the APC will lose the election. But I also think that if that happens, the APC will be a responsible party and they will know what to do.
I mean, Hillary Clinton too didn't think she was going to lose the elections. So that's also a case scenario. Anything can happen, and that's why it's the election process. But let me say this to you very strongly. Can you assure me that when your party, or if your party wins, that the people, or any party that wins, that the people of Edo State will be center in what they do? Because you see, it looks as though even in your campaigns, across both political parties, that the people have been left behind. If I ask you now, Peter, what is the #1 issue on the mind of an average Edo citizen? I'm not sure you can tell me with 100% accuracy.
Unemployment.
Is that it?
Yes.
Is that it?
Yes.
So what is your candidate going to do to solve that?
One of the things that you need to do first is Edo State is an agrarian society. So agric is going to be one very important aspect that I think that the candidate of APC is going to work on. And that is all contained in a simple agenda. And then you also look at the other aspect of it, it's sports. We've ignored sports over a long period. Entertainment. You have, in Edo State, for example, you have a population of between 18 and 35 years old who are 60% of the population. So if you are able to take advantage by creating employment, taking advantage of agric, taking advantage of entertainment, taking advantage of sports, I think that will go a long way in reducing unemployment.
Well, Peter Esele, as we wrap up, as somebody who has been a gubernatorial candidate in Edo State yourself, what will you be saying to the people of Edo State in terms of how they conduct themselves on Saturday, because the major concern has been that in all of these conversations, it's been just about the candidates and their own ambitions. Nobody has really been talking about the people of Edo State. They seem not to be part of the conversation at all. What are your expectations and what will you be saying to them?
My appeal to the people of Edo State is go out and cast your vote. Neither APC nor PDP is worth your blood. Please, we all belong to Edo, and whoever will become the governor of Edo State is not from Sokoto, is not from Maiduguri, is from Edo State. So everything we are going to do on that day is to go there, cast your vote, and leave. Just to make sure that neither you nor any member of your family will be in harm's way. And to the members of the Nigerian police, please just conduct yourself in accordance with the laws of the land. And to INEC officials, please be above board. And at the end of the day, I am still very optimistic that this election will be free, fair, and transparent, and that at the end of the day, Edo people will be proud of the election.
Well, thank you very much, Peter Esele, for joining us on the morning show. We'll keep a watching brief on developments in Edo State. And you can be sure Arise News will be on the ground on Saturday to cover events.